My respects to the President of Argentina, Cristina Fernandez, on this occasion. My greetings to the people of Argentina. Argentina and I have shared, during the past 30 years or so, we've shared many experiences together, memorable, happy generally, and we hope for the future the same. We're now faced with, as a planet, and a people of a planet, with the greatest threat to mankind which probably has ever existed. We are hovering at present, since the murder of the former president of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, we've been hovering ever since then on the verge of going into new wars, into Libya and into Iran. And the intent of those new wars was to trigger a larger war, which would become the launching of a thermonuclear war, featuring the assigned role of the United States under President Obama to launch a general thermonuclear war on Russia, China, and other nations. Such a war, as those of you in the know, shall we say, would understand that Russia would respond with thermonuclear response on the first instance of the evidence of such an assault upon it and China similarly, and other nations probably similarly. This would mean the launching of a thermonuclear war of a type which calls into question the ability of the human species to continue to exist under the kinds of conditions such warfare would create. At present, I'm proud to say that leading military figures of the United States and other relevant figures have done their best to postpone this war and to prevent it if possible. But we cannot hold out forever. As long as this president, with his current intention, President Obama, continues in office, the threat of that warfare continues. If that president were to leave office, I believe at that point we could say that the United States would no longer consent to participate in launching such warfare. On this particular occasion, therefore, we, peoples of various nations, must consider, first of all, preventing the launching of such a war. Because the launching of such a war would probably mean the threatened extinction of the human species. But nonetheless, there are certain people in the world who would rather see the species go extinct than they're losing the power to control it. Inevitably, as I said, the launching of such a war, even the threat of such a war, creates the danger of an extinction of the human species. Therefore, it is the duty of all nations to consider the means by which to prevent this war, and furthermore to examine the conditions which allowed such a threat to come into being. And that should be the concern of all responsible nations at this time. We should understand, however, in that connection, that there are certain conditions which allowed nations such as the United States and Britain to consider provoking such a war. It means that the conditions of life and the conditions of policy making on this nation, this planet, have been deficient. And the problem lies in the fact, as we know, that whereas we've had a population of this planet estimated at 7 billion persons, the intent of the British monarchy, expressed intent repeatedly, is to reduce the world's population from a present level of approximately 7 billion persons to 1 or less. And it is this motive, expressed in that way, in terms of population control and population reduction, which engenders the hatred against mankind as a species, which allows such policies as those we have considered to be launched on this planet. And therefore we must re-examine the morality of the planet and the obligation, first of all, to preserve human life, to promote it, to improve the conditions of life, to increase the productive powers of labor of mankind, to elevate man in the universe. For example, one case, the great danger to the planet, which is obvious today, is that some large rock, probably launched from the vicinity of the Mars orbit or someplace like that, might be cleverly aimed at hitting the northern part of planet Earth. And it might be a very large rock whose impact would cause the extinction of the human species. I think that that possibility, and it is a possibility, even a probability, that unless we act now in the domain of space activities to take the actions which can divert such threats to life on Earth, that life on Earth might just disappear all by itself. And therefore we now have the responsibility to develop the possibility that mankind and its nations can cooperate to advance the capabilities of humanity in such a fashion that we can indeed master the occupation and development of Mars and other such objectives, knowing that these objectives ensure the dignity and meaning of life for the peoples of all nations on Earth. And I think that only that kind of determination, considering the fact that some nations and some leaders of nations are prepared to launch the virtual extinction of mankind through thermonuclear warfare, the time has come that some changes in outlook must be enforced. We must, of course, prevent this war from being launched by all means. But we must at the same time recognize we cannot continue to defend mankind unless we have the attitude and the morality and the practice to ensure that mankind persists, exists, improves, and rises to higher objectives within the solar system and beyond. Thank you.